Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. During the 10th weekend of 2025 that ended on March 9th, one new movie made it into this weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office. And their cumulative total earnings for the weekend rose slightly by 4.39% to $39.6 million, as compared with last weekend's adjusted cumulative total of $37.9 million. Thus, this was the third consecutive weekend that the top 5 cumulative domestic box office total was below $100 million, and the second consecutive weekend that it was below $50 million. So it once again wasn't a good weekend for domestic movie theaters overall. But before proceeding, if you're enjoying this video, please consider pressing the like button, and if you'd like to see more of my content, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. And I want to convey my deepest thanks and appreciation to everyone who has subscribed. This weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office included the following. Opening at number 1 was Warner Bros. Plan B Entertainment's Off-Screens and Kate Street Picture Company's sci-fi black comedy movie entitled Mickey 17. Falling to number 2 was Disney's and Marvel Studios' newest MCU movie entitled Captain America: Brave New World, starring Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford. Falling to number 3 was Focus Features, Dark Castle Entertainment's Longshot Features, Met Films, and 5 other studios' foreign suspense thriller entitled Last Breath. Falling to number 4 was Automatic's low-budget horror movie entitled The Monkey, which is based on a story written by horror writer Stephen King. And falling to number 5 was Studio Canal's Heyday Films, Columbia Pictures, Stage 6 Films, and 3 other studios' 2024 foreign animated and live-action family adventure movie entitled Paddington in Peru. Mickey 17 opened by earning $19.1 million domestically and $34.2 million internationally for a global gross opening weekend box office total of $53.3 million. Captain America: Brave New World earned another $8.5 million domestically, $16.1 million internationally, and $29.1 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $176.6 million, $194.2 million, and $370.8 million, respectively. And for comparison purposes, being its 4th weekend in theaters, Captain America: Brave New World has earned around $22 million less domestically than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania had during its 4th weekend in movie theaters. And that movie went on to be a big box office flop in 2023. Last Breath earned another $4.2 million domestically, $88,000 internationally, and $6.9 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $14.7 million, $197,000, and $14.9 million, respectively. The Monkey earned another $3.9 million domestically, $4.7 million internationally, and $11.1 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $31 million, $8.7 million, and $39.7 million, respectively. Paddington in Peru earned another $3.9 million domestically, $5.8 million internationally, and $11.4 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $37 million, $138.8 million, and $175.8 million, respectively. That brings us to several other movies that I am continuing to track but are no longer in or never were in the top 5, and they include the following. Falling to number 8 was Walt Disney Pictures' animated prequel entitled Mufasa the Lion King. Rising to number 15 was Walt Disney Animation Studios' sequel entitled Moana 2. Rising to number 20 was Paramount Pictures' Sega Sammy Group's original films Marza Animation Planets and Blur Studios' animated three-quel entitled Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And clinging to number 24 was Universal Pictures and Marc Platt Productions' musical fantasy entitled Wicked, starring Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, and Michelle Yeoh. Mufasa the Lion King earned another $1.7 million domestically, $4.1 million internationally, and $6.5 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $250.5 million, $458.3 million, and $708.8 million, respectively. Moana 2 earned another $321,000 domestically, $920,000 internationally, and $1.4 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $459.9 million, $595.4 million, and $1,055.3 million, respectively. The movie remains the third highest grossing movie worldwide for 2024 behind Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 earned another $140,000 domestically, $1.9 million internationally, and $2.1 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $235.8 million, $252 million, and $487.8 million, respectively. Wicked earned another $55,000 during the weekend and $69,000 during the week domestically, $4.5 million internationally, and $4.6 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $473.2 million, $260.6 million, and $733.8 million, respectively. The movie remains the third highest grossing movie domestically for 2024 behind Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, to know whether these movies are going to break even or not, as well as how much money they might be losing, we need to estimate their break-even points. When a movie's marketing budget is known, we can add it to the movie's production budget and then multiply the sum by 2. Otherwise, we can multiply the production budget by 2.5 for a single mid-range estimated break-even point, or by both 2.5 and 3.0 for a broader estimated break-even point range. Both methods account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves. For Mickey 17, with its reported production budget of $118 million, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $295 million to $354 million. For Captain America Brave New World, with its production budget of around $362.5 million, as reported by World of Real and not the $180 million that Disney has clearly falsely reported because they don't want their shareholders knowing how much the movie is losing, that yields an estimated break-even point range of around $906.3 million to $1,087.5 million. For Mufasa the Lion King, with its production budget of $200 million, as reported by multiple sources, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million. For Moana 2, with its reported production budget of $150 million, that yields a break-even point range of $375 million to $450 million. For Sonic the Hedgehog 3, with its production budget of around $122 million, as reported by the New York Times, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $305 million to $366 million. For Wicked, with its reported production budget of $150 million, that yields a break-even point range of $375 million to $450 million. So in this video, I am no longer projecting or never have projected what the final domestic or global gross box office earnings might be for the movies Mufasa the Lion King, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Moana 2, or Wicked, because their expected future earnings are either currently too small, possibly non-existent, or going unreported, or their projected earnings aren't much higher than their current earnings. And each of these movies has already made bank. And that now brings us to the movies whose final domestic and global gross box office revenues I am currently projecting, which includes Mickey 17 and Captain America Brave New World. For Mickey 17, using a range of possible average weekly drops from 30 to 40%, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $47.7 million at the low end, $54.5 million at the mid-range, and $63.6 million at the upper end. Then by using the movie's current domestic share of 35.83%, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $133.2 million at the low end, $152.2 million at the mid-range, and $177.4 million at the upper end. Then, given the movie's estimated break-even point range of $295 million to $354 million, Mickey 17 is a flop and currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $117.6 million to $220.8 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Warner Brothers, Plan B Entertainment, Offscreen, and Kate Street Picture Company currently stand to lose around $58.8 million to $110.4 million. For Captain America Brave New World, using a range of possible average weekly drops from 31.64% to 44.46%, which are plus and minus 1 standard deviation away from the overall MCU average weekly drop of 38.05%, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $192.9 million at the low end, $197.8 million at the mid-range, and $204.6 million at the upper end, which is more narrow than last week's projection. Then by using the movie's current domestic share of 47.62%, which is lower than last week, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $405 million at the low end, $415.3 million at the mid-range, and $429.6 million at the upper end, which is more narrow than last week's projection. So with the movie's estimated break-even point range of $906.3 million to $1,087.5 million, Captain America Brave New World currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $476.6 million to $682.5 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Disney and Marvel Studios currently stand to lose around $238.3 million to $341.3 million. So that effectively makes Captain America Brave New World the biggest flop for 2025 so far this year. And even if you truly want to believe Disney's heavily underreported and unrealistic fake production budget of $180 million, which is hardly believable given how dependent the movie is on CGI and all of the reshoots that were done, the movie would still be a flop because Disney and Marvel Studios would still be facing a loss of around $10.2 million to $67.5 million. So to recap, Mickey 17 joins Captain America Brave New World as box office flops, but Mufasa the Lion King, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, Inside Out 2, Moana 2, and Wicked have all made bank. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video and whether you have or are planning to see any of the movies that I talked about. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed to support this channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.